Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 5:34 and a quorum of members is present, so the meeting of the Board of Education of the School District of New Berlin is called to order. Please call the roll.
Mr. Helmer?
Here.
Mr. Kurth? Here. Ms. Manley? Here. Ms. Schulz?
Here.
Ms. Unger?
Here.
Ms. Wondercheck?
I would entertain a motion to adjourn to closed session.
I move to recess into closed session pursuant to section 19.85, 1C, E, and F of the Wisconsin statutes to consider A, the employment, performance, and compensation matters pertaining to staff, including superintendent's review and contract modification. B, consideration to revised FFCRA policy. C, approval of closed session minutes. And that is all.
Who was second? Susie? Okay. So I have a motion by Mr. Kurth and a second by Ms. Manley. Please call the roll.
Mr. Kurth? Yes. Ms. Manley? Yes. Mr. Helmer?
Yes.
Ms. Schulz?
Yes.
Ms. Unger?
Yes.
Ms. Wondercheck?
Motion passes. We're moving into closed session and we'll return to open session around 7 o'clock.
Feeding is only allowed during lunch. Rule number 3, bump
It is now 7:05, and we are returning from closed session into open session. In recognition of the serious and important nature of our efforts here, we will join in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now, for those who wish to prepare for the meeting, we will have a moment of silence. This is a public meeting of the Board of Education. Prior to this meeting, notice was given to the public last Friday by providing the agenda to the City Library. The agenda was also posted in the district website. A copy of the agenda was forwarded to the Journal-Sentinel, the Waukesha Freeman, the Waukesha Now, all of which have filed requests for all public notices. Our first order of business is recognitions.
Yeah, so I'd like to start with asking Kevin Gemignani, Associate Principal from Eisenhower, to please come up to kind of give a bit of a background and introduction to our honorary designee tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Garza. Before I start, I just got to say it's great to see all these live masked faces. I've enjoyed YouTube very much, but again, I think, and I think Mr. Fesermeyer mostly would agree, it's really nice to have a live school board meeting. Thank you for inviting me up here. As many of you know, this year, January 22nd to be exact, will be Officer Chris Bailey's last day at Eisenhower as our school resource officer. This is my 5th year at Eisenhower. So my first year here at Ike, one of the first people that I met was Chris. I'll probably refer to him as Chris quite a bit during this short conversation because Chris has become a very close personal friend of mine. He knows my kids. He's met my son. He invited my son into a fantasy basketball league this year, which Jackson was super excited about, along with Chris and his 3 sons. So Chris is more than just a colleague here at Eisenhower for me, but he's also more than a colleague for almost the entire Ike community. I was talking to Mr. Buckley, Matt Buckley, today about the things that we want to make sure that we highlighted, and normally with someone like Chris, you don't make a list. And I don't like reading a list, but there's so many things that Chris has brought to Eisenhower in the 4+ years that I have been here. And actually, I had a conversation with my former colleague, Jennifer Foch, actually, who just called me right after the pledge to make sure that I was going to get the comments that she wanted as well. So there are a lot of people who really care for Chris, care about Chris, but really want to recognize everything he's done, not just for Eisenhower, but for the entire community of New Berlin. I mean, clearly as a member of the New Berlin Police Department, he has shown his commitment to our community, but there is more than just that too, Chris. Just some highlights, just as what I've experienced in my time here at Eisenhower. When it comes to school safety, Chris has been an intricate part of creating an environment that is safe, that is secure, that lets parents and students walk into the doors of Eisenhower feeling comfortable and confident that they will be taken care of. And I just don't mean their physical safety. Chris has been a champion for the social and emotional wellness of our students. He is an active advocate for their mental health. When it comes to our school support team meetings, if he is not in attendance, he will ask about the students on the agenda, students that he has connections with, relationships with, students that he deeply cares about. And anything that comes out of those student support meetings, just as one example, that information Chris uses thoughtfully. He uses it with sensitivity, but ultimately, he is student-centered, just like everyone in this room, just like the entire New Berlin, the school district New Berlin staff. So just to simply put, he is acting student first in the time that I've been with him. Fire evac drills have been revised and improved with the help of Chris. Our ALICE drills, active shooter, intruder, how to counter, not just to be safe, but teaching our staff and our students how to not be on the offensive, but to protect themselves and to counter when necessary. Our reunification, if Eisenhower ever hosts a reunification due to an event, We are prepared because Chris helped us go over those protocols and review them and make sure that they were exactly what we needed. 3 years ago, he brought tourniquet training to Eisenhower, and then working in concert with the city of New Berlin, brought Stop the Bleed, a program for New Berlin staff to learn how to adequately and successfully use a tourniquet. Chris was deeply involved in that effort. Table talks. Every year, reviewing possible scenarios to make sure that we have everything we need in place to make sure that the students and staff of Eisenhower are safe when they walk in the building every single day. Bus duty, not so much safety. Voluntarily, almost every day after school, Chris is outside on the North Drive, saying goodbye to the students, talking to the bus drivers, making sure that the North Drive is as safe as possible, which is a challenge in and of itself. We don't ask him to do it, he just does it. Lunch supervision, if he's not in the gym this year or in the commons or in the cafeteria. Again, we don't ask him to do it, he does it. He will look at our calendars, and if Ms. Springer and myself are not available, or if Ms. Moss is unavailable, Chris will be in place. He won't ask us if we need him there. He will just be in place for lunch supervision. He's a middle school track coach. He has chaperoned every homecoming dance and every prom dance since I have been here, with the exception of last spring, of course. He's a lot of fun to sit at the table with. He looks great in a suit and tie, not just in his police blues, of course. He's at all of our football games. Again, serving as a member of the New Berlin Police Department, but also as an advocate for the School of Eisenhower and the District of New Berlin. Every year he works with Linda Moss for a cyberbullying presentation as part of our digital citizenship program with our 7th graders. So any way that he can make an impact on our students to keep them safe, but also to teach them how to think responsibly, how to think critically, to think before they hit send, if you will. Chris has been deeply involved in that. If there is a student that isn't feeling well, a student who's injured in PE, if I don't get to the wheelchair in time in the health room, he'll get it and he'll meet me down in the lower gym. Anytime there's a call out for an administrator, he'll get on the radio, and if we can't get there, he will let us know, let our health aide know, let Ms. Oakes know that he's available, and he'll go down and check on that student for us until we get there. Again, I've talked about Chris as a champion for social and emotional wellness, whether it was helping us with threat assessments for a student that we thought maybe potentially could be a candidate for self-harm, working with our social worker, Lasagna Johnson, working with our 3 counselors, working with the 3 administrators, working with Kevin Fitzgerald, our athletics and activities director, volunteering to go visit students at the home, not as so much as a law enforcement agent, but just as a representative of the district and representative of Eisenhower. These are things that we do not ask him to do. These are things that he asks us if we would like him to do. He truly is invested in the Eisenhower community. He is truly invested in the New Berlin community. There are many times he will check in and say, hey, I'm going to be gone for an hour. I got to go to Orchard Lane. I need to go to Reagan. I need to go to Elmwood. So not only at Eisenhower, the elementary schools know Chris very well. The administrators at those 3 schools know him very well. The only reason I didn't say Poplar Creek is because we have a very good school resource officer at New Berlin West, Ryan Strauss, who's also very supportive, who is the primary to go to PC. But I know anytime that Ryan's not available, Chris will step in, and vice versa. It's a wonderful team that we have with the New Berlin Police Department. We always tell people that Mr. Garza is not Chris's boss, right? However, he is always working in the best interest of the district. I think Mr. Garza would agree that he's a great representative of what we stand for in the school district of New Berlin. 2 years ago, if my memory is correct, and Mr. Garza, please help me out, we had a group of students that I believe sent a petition to you to extend Chris's stay here at Eisenhower. And they were seniors that weren't going to be here after Chris was going to stick around. So you think about the impact, the legacy that Chris has on the Eisenhower community. Seniors that were graduating, that were still invested in the Eisenhower and wanted to see it successful, knew that having Chris around after they left would be an important part of continuing this tradition of excellence, of expecting excellence that we have in New Berlin. And as I said, I am proud to call Chris my friend. I am proud to call Chris my colleague. It is a huge loss for us as a school. We have a wonderful replacement. Erica Komorowski will be joining us the last week of January. She has spent a number of days here already. Chris has worked very, very hard to make sure not only is she prepared to support Eisenhower, but that Eisenhower knows who she is. I have the utmost confidence that Erica will do a great job for Eisenhower in the school district of New Berlin. But again, I know I'm not losing a friend. I won't see him every day. I know that we will stay connected. But the impact that Chris has had on me personally, me professionally as an administrator, is something that I'll be forever grateful. And I'm glad that I got the opportunity to say this out loud in front of his wife, in front of his 3 sons, as well as in front of the board. Chris, thank you for everything that you've given Eisenhower on behalf of the Eisenhower administration. I know there are a number of teachers that are sad that you will be leaving. They do know that you're going to do drive-bys as much as you can, as much as your supervisor will allow. We know we'll see you at football games. Mr. Fitzgerald will probably try to talk you into chaperoning homecoming and prom once that comes back. But we wish you the best of luck. And everything that we have gained as a school, we know that the entire city of New Berlin will gain, as now you leave Eisenhower, but now you are back in the community. So we will continue to know that we are safe and that we are protected and that we have been taken care of. So, Chris, thank you very much for everything you've done for Eisenhower and for the District of New Berlin. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you. 6.5 years ago, I applied for a position to be here at Eisenhower, and now it's 5.5 years have passed since then. It was a tough choice for me to make, but to step down after the semester is over, I think is the right choice for my career. And looking back at the time that I've spent here, the administration has been far more than helpful in each way, and working with them in every which way to make this school better, to make the community better, the kids, the staff, everybody. The board members throughout the years, the people over at district office, Mr. Garza, and everybody else over there has been supportive and found a great way to work together as a team to help the community in every which way possible. You know, the support with everyone at the police department. There's a couple of people over here, Captain Thompson's over here, and Sergeant Rocklowitz. I actually got to work with Sergeant Rocklowitz the first couple of years when he was at New Berlin West, so he kind of trained me for the position, so that was kind of a big help that way. And throughout the years, like Kevin said, he brought up a bunch of different things with the safety drills and all that. I liked being with the kids, whether it be through lunch. It was a great way to communicate with them. And I'm surprised he didn't bring up my newest adventure, being at the lunch lady line over there to help out during lunch. So people laugh, but it's a great way to meet kids. It's a great way to see kids you haven't met before, especially when they're middle school kids. Put pictures of their face, especially with masks and all that. It's a great way to meet kids that way. Just put their names to their faces. So throughout the years, like I said, you know, whether it be coming in, talking to some kids that had a rough weekend, or if they had questions about something that happened throughout, you know, the week, whether it be through a family incident, whether it be, you know, something that happened with them, or if they just had questions about how things are going on. The last year with things in the news and the police, I've had a lot of kids come up and ask, hey, how come this is happening? Why are people saying these things? You know, and part of the role as a SRO is to help create that path to kids that have questions, staff members that have questions, parents. It's to help build that for the community, to help show that the police are there for them. Some kids that had some bad dealings with the police, whether it be here or someplace else, part of the role as the SRO is to make sure that they understand kind of why things happen the way that they do. And I had a great opportunity to help with some students that way, some staff members, to help mold them to understand kind of our perspective of things and have them see why we do the things that we do. Not just only here at the secondary level, but going to the elementaries as well. I actually had the luxury of working with Matt Stemeski, wherever he is. I grew up with Matt, so I had a good relationship with Matt starting from that. So it was good to actually have an opportunity to work with him in my role while he was in his role as well. So I could sit up here and talk all day, but there's a lot of good things that happen. This is a great school district. This is a great community, you know, and with our department working with the school, we make it even better. So I just want to thank everybody for everything they've done, school board, district, all the other staff members, past, present, everyone from the police department. This was a great opportunity, and I appreciate everybody for this night tonight, so I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Chris, obviously we have provided for you something kind of representing your years of service here in the School District of New Berlin. We typically would probably shake hands and maybe even give you a little bro hug, but given the COVID-19 protocols, we're going to skip that. I also did want to just briefly give a shout out to the entire New Berlin Police Department. As Chris mentioned, we do have 2 former SROs here, now Sergeant Rockowitz and now Captain Thompson, who are SROs in the school district as well, are here in support of Chris. And as Chris mentioned, he will now be a part of the broader community, beyond just Eisenhower. Be quite honest with you, I get to see these gentlemen, throughout the city as well. And so we wish Chris the very best. There have been some retirements in the police department, that there will be some upward mobility, I'm being told, for Officer Bailey and opportunities for him within the police department. So again, congratulations, Chris. Thank you for everything that you've done, and we wish you all the very best.
Thank you very much.
And we'll have you head back by Dave Cody so we can get a picture of you with your nice little plaque. You want to grab the top of it too there, Chris? There you go. Rock and Thompson, good seeing you guys. Couldn't recognize you with your all right. See you, Chris.
Next up is privilege of the floor. Do we have anyone? Okay, then President's message and announcements. Just have a short message. As you know, last time Amy Crosby, our board president, couldn't be with us. She suffered a medical emergency. Just wanted to give you a little update. She is slowly recovering, so continue to keep her and her family in your prayers and thoughts. And the family really does appreciate the outpouring of concern and support that they've received. And I'd also like to share my appreciation to the fellow board members who have reached out to me to say, hey, I'm here to help you, since I've been suddenly thrust into this situation, leading the board through this time while she is out. So I really appreciate that. Next up is the administrative team report.
Yes, so as mentioned, we are now back to having our updates from the various schools, and we're back to Poplar Creek. I'm not sure, Matt, if you and Jenny planned on coming up briefly, but we have Principal Matt and Associate Principal Jenny here to kind of give a brief intro to their Poplar Creek update. I didn't know you grew up with Chris. That's a fun fact.
I've known him a long time, yeah.
Okay.
So if you want some non-police related stories, we can, it's good. Yeah, so congratulations to him. He's a really good friend of mine for a very long time. So.
Hi, everyone. I'm glad that this is in person, so I can finally introduce myself. I'm Jenny Trojan, the Associate Principal at Poplar Creek. It's been amazing being here, even though we started with this wonderful pandemic, and I've never actually seen everyone's full faces, so that'll take some getting used to at some point. I can honestly say, though, this is the first time I work for a school that my kids have to go to. Like, my 2 babies have to come to Poplar Creek, so we'll be talking about that. So it's just wonderful to be here, and nice to meet you all.
Yes, thank you for having us. Jenny's been an amazing addition to our team. And so just before we get to our video, I just wanted to share that this video is student-created and student-led, along with all of the fundraisers and activities that you hear about in the video is all student-created, student-led. And so at one point, even during the video, during the taping, I had said, apparently a silly question, I'd asked a silly question about the sound, and like, Mr. S, we got it. So then I backed away, and they finished it. So please enjoy the 4th, 6th graders that created this for us. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much, Matt and Jenny. Again, these are just some of the great things happening at Poplar Creek and throughout our school district. Again, we'll continue to provide varying updates. Obviously, your next update will come from your student representative, Emily from New Berlin West. And then we also have the New Berlin West admin team here representing the students and staff of New Berlin West. And they'll be presenting kind of a general update of the happenings at New Berlin West so far this school year. So Emily, after you.
So for updates regarding activities, New Berlin West Spanish Honor Society El Sol raised $2,200 for children in Waukesha before break. New Berlin West's academic decathlon team attended regionals remotely last week. They ranked 3rd regionally and will be headed to state this spring. SALU, the student government, is working on alternative plans for Crystal Ball this year. For athletics, New Berlin United Wrestling faced Wisconsin Lutheran last Wednesday and won 42-30. Girls basketball is going 6-3 this season so far. And NBW Strength and Conditioning started before break and is prepping athletes for their spring sports. Overall, students are happy to be back and finish the semester. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. As far as my respective update, I did just want to clarify a couple things. The first thing that I wanted to mention was we did receive a request from Vice President Schulz related to getting some data provided to the board and to the general community about the impact that COVID has had on academics compared to previous years, attendance compared to previous years, grading compared to previous years. We chose to hold off, and we will actually be presenting to the board the first meeting in February. And the rationale for that is because we wanted to wait to see what our grades were going to be at the end of semester, which would give us, just a kind of a moment in time that we would be very familiar to, looking back on. Not only that, but we also have, we had the fall MAP tests that we did as we returned from the school year. We are actually in the process, or will be in the process of having our winter MAP tests here in the next week or so. We will then be able to analyze that data to be able to give you again kind of where we were when we started the school year to where we are now. Identify any gaps that we may or may not have, and then let you know exactly how we're going to target making sure that we get our students to where they need to be. Obviously, as you are all aware, what we experienced last spring was our best attempt at emergency learning for our students and our staff. We did not have, because we were shut down rather quickly, we did not have the resources, the training, and necessarily, or the amount of training that we really wanted. Obviously it came, we did the best that we could. We survived, but, what are the implications as a result of that? Fortunately, we've had, the majority of our students, 75% plus of our students and their families chose in-person learning. And those others that are the 25% chose that option as well. And so we want to analyze, okay, depending on, where we are, making sure that we continue the level of rigor that we would come to expect in the school district of New Berlin moving forward. And again, if there are gaps, where are those gaps? And then making sure that we attack that head on and make sure that our students are getting back and ramped up so that there is no gap in their learning as a result of what we all experienced. So again, we would not have that for the next meeting just because you at the end of the semester, we need to analyze the data from MAP, and we'll be presenting that to you the first meeting in February. I'll provide the rest of my update during the regular agenda.
Does anybody have any questions specific to what he just brought up? I had a quick question then, if no one else does.
Sure.
As far as you mentioned MAP testing, I've heard some talk that the state was looking at possibly suspending standardized testing. Do you know anything of that? And would the school district here continue to do it anyway if it was suspended?
As far as MAP testing, that is our internal measure. So we do that as our progress monitor, or one of our many ways to progress monitor. And then that is actually normalized, there's a national norm with that. Obviously, our students perform at very high levels, so we know kind of where we've been, say like the last 2 or 3 years. So Kelly and the team on the teaching and learning side are analyzing. They constantly analyze that and continue to analyze that. I liken the exams that we have with the state. So the MAP tests, I liken them as a reaction, where you can react to. It's a doctor's appointment. It's a surgery. You can analyze. You can prescribe, and then you can, dig a little deeper and provide remedy. Where I would look at like a state exam is more like an autopsy. It's like an outcome of you can look back and determine like what may have happened. But for us, I don't think we would take an additional standardized test if we didn't need to. And so depending on what the state were to do, now mind you, obviously if we do have to, we may have to do ACT testing, which may be different, because of the implications that it would have on a student that could be like a junior or a senior. But if we had to not have to do like a forward exam, or for the younger grades, I couldn't imagine that we would do any additional testing if we didn't need to, but certainly continue with our internal monitoring ways, like MAP testing and others. So does that answer your question, Janet?
Yes. Yes,
Right.
thank you.
As of right now, I don't know. Kelly, are you aware? Have they?
They're still in the process of talking about whether or not forward will happen this year or not, and how it will be administered, because not all children across the state of Wisconsin have a device, and nor are all children across the state of Wisconsin in person. So because of all those variables, it's still in discussion at this point.
If there's nothing else on that topic, we can move on. Up next is the consent agenda. Are there any items that should be pulled out for separate consideration?
I did want to just mention that we do have 2 WIAA cooperative agreements. As per usual, we have a combined boys volleyball team for New Berlin West and New Berlin Eisenhower, as well as a girls golf team. Again, this allows us to have our students participate in ways that they normally wouldn't, and allows us to do the co-op with both New Berlin West and New Berlin Eisenhower.
Are those just forms that have to be filled out every 2 or 3 years then? Is that?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Kurth and a second by Mr. Helmer to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, raise your hand. Motion passes. On to the regular agenda. The school update from New Berlin West.
I would like to introduce Principal Fesenmeyer, and he can introduce his respective associate principals whenever he sees it appropriate.
Well, good evening, board. My name is Michael Fesenmeyer. I'm proud to be the principal at New Berlin West. And I was just thinking as I was sitting in this chair, first of all, I was an advocate for in-person. I think Callie will say when I said, it'd be great if we could give the school board update in person. And then we were out of the point where we recorded the entire thing. And then on Thursday, we got the notification we could be in person. So we're really pleased to be here, to be in front of you today. Ms. Trudy Whalen is one of our associate principals. Mr. Greg Depew is another one of our associate principals, and not with us tonight, but with us in spirit is Mr. Jordan Napoli. With the change, he was not able to be physically present. So one of the things that I was thinking about our school update is, I believe this is my 6th year at West. It might be my 7th. I can't remember. I've been in the district a little while. And when I took over at New Berlin West, when Mr. Garza called me into his office in June, and he said, how do you feel about going to New Berlin West? And I think at that time, and this is the first time I think I'm going to share this out in public, I think at that time I said, are you asking me or telling me? And it was very much, we want you to do this. And at that time, New Berlin West was in a place of a lot of turnover. There was a lot of staff turnover. There was a lot of administrative turnover. And I feel like we've made a big jump in that regard. That's not part of this presentation, but I say that because this gentleman behind me has been with me the entire time. And Trudy was part of our school district the entire time when working as a math coach at the time, and then became an associate principal. And Mr. Napoli has been through the entire time, which that stability, I think, is really a good thing in a lot of ways, and it's reduced the turnover for staff. We were hiring probably 7 to 10 staff members per year as we started out. And last year, different year, but I think we were at 3. So that's just kind of a big stride. The other thing I want to say is Ms. Makakenjo over there on the left undersells herself and her performance a tremendous amount. So when she was talking about ACDAC, I don't think she's highlighting that maybe to the level that it should be highlighted. She said 3rd in region, which that's true. They were 3rd in the region, but they were also 5th in the state of Wisconsin. So that qualification for that state level, both schools, New Berlin and Eisenhower, was 1st in the region and 3rd in the state of Wisconsin. Both schools have performed tremendously well in that environment for the last number of years, and this year no exception. And we're actually very excited because we get the opportunity to bring speech and interview back at the state level, which has been one of the strengths of our teams going forward. So Emily's part of that team. She also didn't say that. So I just want to highlight that, she along with the other members of that team and the work that they're doing before we jump in. As we jump in tonight, we're really going to tell a story about this year, kind of how it connects to years before, but how it connects to the future. So I really encourage you to look at the pictures. We'll talk it through, but this is a video that our students did to start the school year.
Hi guys!
Welcome back to New Berlin West.
Today we're going to teach you about some of the new back-to-school policies.
Come on, let's go!
Always on when you enter. Eating is only allowed during lunch. Rule number 3, bubblers, off. Water bottle fillers, they're on.
One-way hallways. Follow the arrows to go one direction. Two-way hallways. Stay on your side and keep your distance. There's new eating areas all over the school to eat your lunch while maintaining social distancing. Make sure you keep your distance and stay in the same spot for the lunch period. Students must sanitize every time they enter a classroom.
Make sure you bring your Chromebook charged and headphones to school.
When you go to the bathroom, use a paper pass. We're not using these anymore. No locker rooms for gym class except for lifeguarding.
Open campus for 10th through 12th graders.
So that was our SALU group, which was one of our student leadership groups who did that for all of our students to start the school year, really to try and present some of the different changes that we've all experienced. As we go through the presentation, we're going to talk a little bit about this year, but also we're going to talk about some things that we actually held on to as well. I do encourage you to look at the pictures. I think you've got a copy of this. We can send you the recorded copy if you want as well. But the pictures really show what the inside of school looks like in a lot of regards this year. We stay tight with our mission and vision no matter what. I know I can't move away from this microphone, so I like to walk. And when we talk about our mission and vision, really it's that connection with students about using their secondary school experience to identify opportunities for post-secondary. So our goal really with all of our students is to give them the best and the most opportunities they can have in their post-secondary experience through using our school and our school system in their secondary school experience and taking advantage of the opportunities we have. As we talk through tonight, we're really going to talk through the school year, and it's a year like none other that I've experienced. I think I'm over 25 years in education right now. I've had a lot of experiences, but nothing like this. Overall, it's been positive. You'll hear that our students who are in person like to be in person. Our students who are virtual and chose that are really comfortable with that choice, and the families that are comfortable with that choice. We'll talk about our focus and our goals as a school and how that fits into the larger picture of our district work. We want to touch on academic areas and some of the opportunities that are there and that are available for all secondary students. And then we want to talk a little bit about our teachers and our staff, how they've navigated this time and how well they are doing to support our students. As we jump in, and this is a little bit harder to read, so I think this is cheating, but I'm going to cheat a little bit so I can move over here and talk. I want to talk a little bit about some challenges that we've had as a staff, some of the successes that have come out of that, and then, like anything that you experience, through some of these challenges, you find things you want to hold on to and you want to keep and you want to continue to do because it's been better and provided more opportunity than those things before. So some of those protocols, if you have students at West, you've heard about one-way hallways or Eisenhower 2, one-way hallways and drinking fountains not being available, and they highlighted most of those. What I have to say is our students and staff have handled those extremely well. We were worried about students wearing masks and people wearing masks when we started the school year. It has absolutely not been an issue. Students traveling in hallways and not using lockers, people have just made the adjustment and accommodated to those things that they've needed to keep us in person and keep us successful. Teaching and learning is teaching through dual platforms and teaching to two different environments. They're teaching to virtual students and in-person students at the same time. And one thing I absolutely have to say is thank you to the extra 2 weeks at the start of the school year to be able to learn the new platforms, get up and running. It's been a lot of heavy lifting by teachers, yet I think it's one of the things that's been able to keep us in person all the way through. Because as you look at this third bullet, the quarantines and other absences, we had days when we probably had, I know we had close to, if not 15 staff members out on a given day, over 100 students out on a given day, and we were still able to offer classes to students in person and virtual. Our teachers were able to teach from home. Our students were able to access from home when they needed. So those dual platforms worked really well in that environment. Students and families got the chance to choose in-person or virtual at the start of the school year, and then we continued to listen to them as we went through. We've been able to conduct our athletics and our activities, and if Jordan were here, and I think you're his voice tonight, he will say it's not without challenge and it's not without continual changes, yet we were excited and we appreciate being able to do that. Our students are running a new schedule and they got used to that old, I say that old now because it seems like a long time ago, but it was just last year, the color day and the rotational schedule, and they were exposed to a new and different schedule. One of the biggest challenges that we've seen is we lost that flex time that we had in the middle of the day, that 40 minutes of support time with students and teachers. So that's been probably one of the most significant challenges as far as the learning side this year. Successes, and I've touched on this. One of the things I think I missed in the first one, but I'm going to connect it to here, we've had far less behavioral issues this year. And when you think about it, they're not using lockers. Students aren't using lockers. They're sitting farther apart at lunch. Their travel during passing time doesn't create those circles or those different places. And fortunately or unfortunately, they don't talk as much during class. A lot of people would say unfortunately, actually, to that. But with that, we've had a rise in some social emotional issues due to the pandemic, due to the different experiences students have. So we've really engaged our time working with our student support teams, working with our counselors, and we've got our family services team trying to support students and families as needed in that regard. So it's been a shift in time, but working a little bit differently. Our teachers have really navigated the multiple platforms well. I think way better than, and Mr. Garza touched on last year, when we didn't have a real clean, real clear plan. We had to move very quickly. This year we do, and using Canvas and using Infinite Campus and teachers having a structure, that's been much better for students and families to navigate than where we were last year. Flexibility with choices. It was interesting as we got into the year and we got into October and November, we had a number of students who wanted to change their choice from where they were in the start of the school year. And we've allowed those changes in choice to move through the rest of the semester. So if you were in person and you wanted to do virtual and you thought that would be the best, we allowed that. If you were virtual and you said, this virtual learning thing just is not working for me, we allowed those students and figured out how to bring them back in person. So that was an adjustment that we made. And then those continual adjustments for activities. Sometimes we can allow parents, sometimes we could even allow students at some of these activities, which has been great. I think it's allowed and caused people to appreciate a lot more what we had versus where we are. Considerations for the future, that virtual option for students, for some students, has been really successful, and it may be something that we want to hold on to moving forward. It may be just the best way some people learn. So just a consideration, not saying we will, but ideas. The alternative experience for activities, we did some things with activities that we'll absolutely keep. We did some things with food trucks, outdoor movies, some things like that that were responded to very well. Virtual options for students and teachers to meet and or teachers to collaborate with each other. Takes away travel time, takes away I need to get home, I can't meet with my teacher after school because I have to ride the bus home. You can ride the bus home and then log on to a Google Meet and you can still be meeting with your teacher, and we're a lot more comfortable in that environment. In all honesty, the virtual option for parent-teacher conferences, I don't know, I'm looking at parents as I sit here, but our response was 100% positive. There were a couple little glitches with it that we worked through, but people thought that that might be something that we should hold on to in the future. And then on our longer class hours, where we've got those longer class hours and less class hours a day, we've heard some positive feedback on that as well, so maybe some considerations for the future. Our school goals are something that we have always had. We've always had 3 school goals. Going backward, we've always had 3 school goals. Going forward, we'll probably continue to have 3 and or more school goals. I'm going to touch on the first one, and then Greg will jump in and touch on the second, and Trudy will touch on the third. But the first one is our academic goal related to literacy, and it's a consistent goal that we have had since we started at New Berlin West. It's going to be a continuing target for us. Right now, it's a district-wide target, without question. And the work that we're doing in that right now, we've seen some growth from past years, but we need to continue to get deeper, because that literacy aspect is one thing that actually filters out to all other areas. So we've got schools, both schools in the secondary school area are working together right now on high leverage literacy strategies. So things like explicit teaching and verbalizing some of the things you're reading, goal setting and feedback. Some of those types of things, teachers are working both in large groups and then working in small groups and connecting with each other to grab onto those strategies, practice those strategies, and then share with each other and continue to implement those going forward. And I think it's been a challenge for people, because when you're used to in person, trying to overlay those into a virtual environment has been a little bit of a challenge. Some people have that better than others, so that sharing opportunity that we have right now is really beneficial. So that's the first goal. Greg, are you?
I am blessed to work with Michael because he has the gift of words, and whenever I need that, but Trudy and I, not so much. So I'm going to put it back on here because we're going to read. You know I'll drop this, Trudy. Oh, you're kidding me, Trudy. I don't know what I did. Oh, there you go. God bless Trudy, too. Start over. So, good evening. Our second goal is related to culture. In an effort to ensure all students feel safe and supported, we have implemented the following action steps. First, we have created both student and teacher groups to discuss equity, justice, and implicit bias. These discussions have included topics such as religion, race, special education, gender, obesity, and many more. Additionally, we have created monthly administrative roundtables that we call Ask Admin Anything. During a designated lunch period, students can come ask questions of all 4 administrators. To date, these have been very well attended and have led to excellent discussions between administration and students. Lastly, we engage students in a workshop called Challenge Day, which has allowed students to share their personal feelings and beliefs as well as hearing from other students. Trudy's got goal 3.
So our third goal, we continue to focus on college and career like we did in the past. So last year, our college and career goal was focused on incorporating Career Thursday sessions for our 9th through 12th grade students to provide them an opportunity to sign up for careers of interest during our flex. This year, our focus continues to be on providing opportunities for the community and families to share their knowledge and expertise, while providing experiences for our students to be exposed to areas of interest as they develop their academic and career plan. So this fall, we successfully held our first virtual career day for our 7th and 8th grade students. It was kind of piggybacked off of what we did last year, and we hoped to continue our Career Thursdays, but we don't have Flex currently, so that presents a little bit of a problem this year. But we did collect feedback from our presenters, and one person said the following: "It was a great experience. The kids were engaged, asked good questions, and were very respectful, even though it was a virtual format. Many said thank you as they were signing off from the Zoom call. There were no issues with technology for me, and everything ran very smoothly." Additional feedback was that presenters would have liked more time to share. So in our planning process, we were trying to kind of guess how much time would be appropriate for presenters to share with our 7th and 8th graders, and not make it too long so they wouldn't be disengaged or things like that. So they had 25 minutes. So one thing they said is they would have liked more time to share, which was great to hear. And all the presenters that responded said that they would be willing to do this in the future as well. So that was also another thing that was great to hear. In the future, we plan to continue to expand these experiences virtually and in person, kind of combining the two. From last year, we were able to do them in person. This year, we've had to do them virtually, by creating a structure that encourages all our high school students to attend career sessions to support the development of their post-secondary plans.
The next area that we want to highlight is just, and like I said, you've got this in the slide, but this highlights all of the post-secondary options that are available to our students. And difficult to read from this far away, but in every content area, there are post-secondary options that are available to our students. And one of the things that we benefit from is in a 7-12 environment, our students can start planning for those in 7th and 8th grade and build into those as they go through high school. One of the challenges happens if you move into just a high school setting, and something like this is a new exposure to you, to be able to set yourself up academically to take advantage of some of these is very difficult. So you've got AP classes, of which we've got 23 that we offer in the district. Advanced placement opportunities give students a chance to earn credit at a college or university, but it's different in different colleges and universities depending on your AP score. So in a lot of places, it's getting to be that you need the highest level you can get an AP score is a 5. It's getting to be that a 3, which is passing, doesn't necessarily get you credit in that content area. You need that 4 or 5. So that's something that we watch. We've got about a 75% pass rate for our students in our school of all the students who take that opportunity. The second one is a dual credit opportunity for students where they can take a college credit and they get dual credit for high school and college at the same time, but it's actually a college level course. Some of our students take those on campus with our own instructors. Some of those students take them on campus with post-secondary instructors, and some of them take them actually at the post-secondary school or institution. All options for students, including some of our tech areas where you think about our CNC program. Welding has become a very popular program at West, which leapfrogs them into some really great opportunities beyond high school. And then in the past 2 to 3 years, we've had 2 people that have come out of school and will have come out of school and automatically jump into a high-level placement in plumbing, of all things, where they're doing their apprenticeship and they're moving through that apprenticeship so quickly that they're going to become a licensed journeyman plumber much quicker than you would in other areas. So those opportunities for our students, and again, construction is another area. You just continue to offer those different opportunities for students. We've just got, I want to say hotel and restaurant management, that's not the actual name for it, but those types of services for students is a new area that came in last year. And then the last area is a CAP course that we have right now through UW Oshkosh in Spanish, where students are earning collegiate credit for the UW system schools in Spanish. And that's the level before we get to our AP Spanish. So that's 6 levels of Spanish that we offer. So when you think about that, there's a whole lot available. And I always tell students you have to take advantage of our school system while you're here, but you need to plan to take advantage of it. You can't get to be a junior and say, oh, I would really like to, and then you haven't done the prerequisite work to get there. So we try to have that conversation early on, but that's the variety of opportunities that we have.
This year, students have had the option of learning in person or virtually, as you know. And as in the past, as Michael mentioned, our students have had a dual credit option to take courses that allow them to earn both high school and post-secondary credit. Our teachers have done an excellent job simultaneously preparing and delivering lessons to both our in-person and virtual learners. In a few cases, we have provided a blended option for students. An example of this would be a student who is virtual, but also taking a lifeguarding course. That student would work from home for all classes, but then come in just for their lifeguarding class. At West, we could not be more proud of our teachers. Our low turnover and the fact that we continually have staff recommending teachers from outside of New Berlin for positions that we have open at West is evidence of that. Walk our hallways between class periods and you will see staff throughout the building out in the halls, greeting students and engaging them in conversation. This also extends outside of the classroom as you will see staff attending West activities and athletic events. As our teachers plan and prepare, they stay focused on ensuring that all decisions are made with the best interests of students in mind. Lastly, our staff is dedicated to continuous improvement. They are actively involved in the planning of professional learning and both recommended topics and lead out learning sessions for fellow staff members. And I'm going to go off topic here real quick, or on the same topic, and just I want to say that Michael is really, he won't give himself enough credit, but he truly is the reason that we are as successful as we are. I have been in education for 29 years now, 18 of those as an administrator, and in 5 different districts. This is truly the best team I've been on. Julie Cater too, when she was on our team. But his leadership has been just wonderful, and he should get that acknowledgement.
The Viking head? The Viking head with all the masked faces of our staff, but you can't see it really closely, but if you get a chance to look really closely, that's what you've got. So one of the things that we're pretty proud of, and when we think about this, is our student to staff ratio. And we talked about social emotional learning, and we talked about relationships before. And when you see that number 15-1, that looks really low, especially when we have some class sizes that are like 32 and 33, and some others that are 25 or whatever they are. But that's all staff. Our SLAs, our special education assistants, our student learning assistants, other people within counselors, other people within the school community. And one of the things I will say about that is that staff ratio gives us the opportunity to build relationships with students more effectively. And there are some students in our school that it might be a teacher that they're more comfortable. There's other ones that might be a counselor. And another one, it might be one of the learning assistants that they talk to during the lunch hour. So all of those opportunities allow us to make those connections with students that I think are so very important to success. The next number that you see on the right is 11, and that's the number of Cole Fellows. Cole Fellows Outstanding Teacher Award in the state of Wisconsin. That's the number of Cole Fellows at New Berlin West. Very high number. What's interesting about that number is we have 5 in the past 5 years. And there's very few schools in the state of Wisconsin, I don't think, that could carry that number. We're pretty proud of our staff and the quality of staff that we have and the work that they're doing with students. The last one is teacher experience. And as you read that, you're going to see 24, 48, and 12. 24 teachers that have 5 years or less of experience in the school district in New Berlin. It doesn't mean they have 5 years or less of experience. It means 5 years or less in our school district. The next group, the largest group, is 48. They have 5 to 20 years. And then the smallest group is the group with more than 20 years in the school district of New Berlin, and that number is 12. The reason I put this out there is I think it's important to have that variety on your staff. I think it's important to have that experience level for teachers, for new teachers to connect to. It's important to have that new blood, that new experience, and new ideas that come along with it, and then people that kind of know how things work in the middle. And like I said earlier, we're proud of our lower turnover. I know this year is a challenging year, so all we can do is keep supporting people to try and be the best they are. But this level of experience that we have, I truly think benefits our students and families as well as our staff and each other as we work together. This is Trudy, aka Jordan.
So since Jordan wasn't going to be here, he did share kind of what he would share with all of you tonight. So I'm going to speak on behalf of him. So this is what he would have said had he been here. So creating a positive student experience and culture within our building has been our focus for the past few years. 2020 made this task challenging in a variety of ways, but we've done our best to create a spirited and encouraging atmosphere, even though it's looked different. Upon our return to school in the fall, many students were excited to be back in the building. As the year progressed, it was important to keep a positive message and attitude with our students, who at times became disengaged and/or anticipating an event being canceled, a game being postponed, or their season cut short due to the many factors surrounding the pandemic. Credit is due to our coaches, club advisors, and student leaders who promoted positive messages and reminded students to appreciate the activities and opportunities we had in front of us. Many schools around us did not even get the chance to participate in athletics and activities, so our message of "we get to" was important to keep kids motivated and involved. Throughout the fall and now into winter, we've been able to offer nearly everything we typically would, with some small changes to how we operate. At sporting events, our athletes and spectators are masked up. Locker rooms are off limit, spectators are limited, and many fans watch via live stream. In other areas, our clubs and organizations are finding ways to offer creative opportunities for students as well. For example, our ACT Deck competitions are 100% virtual. Our forensics team will not compete as normal, but rather will host open mic nights, debate nights, and other opportunities for kids invested in these activities to showcase their talents. West Theater Arts has pulled off socially distanced performances. Our honor societies have had virtual induction ceremonies, and our other leadership organizations have really stepped up in 2020. Our student ambassadors created a COVID-friendly homecoming week with revised activities, including an outdoor drive-in movie, food truck lunch, and social media Spirit Week contests. Moreover, our service organizations have gone over and above this year to create meaningful outreach opportunities. In a time when people are struggling in a variety of ways, I was proud to see our service organizations go over and above to give back. In the fall, our NHS held a drive-through trick-or-treat, a blood drive, and partnered with DECA to have their most successful food drive, which saw 42 food barrels donated to the New Berlin Food Pantry. Spanner Amish Society generated $2,000 for the Christmas Clearinghouse, and just before the new year, 5 different service and leadership organizations partnered to raise over $5,000, all of which went directly back to students and families in our school as part of our holiday giving drive. Altogether, there's been ups and downs this year, but many takeaways that will change how we operate in the future. We're hopeful some of the new experiences created will become traditions that New Berlin West carries on for years to come.
This slide just simply shows some of the recognitions our school has gotten as part of the district, or their own school in general, over the past 2 to 3 to 4 years. And we highlight those just to keep in mind that those are still important, those are still part of our work, those are still something we look toward, and we just want to keep those at the fore of some of those conversations. I think as we close, and especially this year, it's a different year. A lot of times we'd be talking about specifically numbers, and last year, I think if you were here, you remember we were walking up sharing these big boards of numbers and showing growth and all those different things. And this year's a little bit different year. And it's not that those numbers aren't important, they still are, and it's not that we're still not striving to meet those. But there's a different experience for students and a different opportunity for students and families this year than there ever has been in the past. And I think that appreciation for being able to choose your learning style and being able to engage in school. The conversations we heard from last spring to this fall are very different from students and families. Last spring it was, you know, the tired, the lack of engagement, the challenges that we're stuck with being at home. And this year we've offered a variety of opportunities that have not been perfect for everybody, and I would never say that they were, but truly gives a lot better experience for students to be able to get back to some of those things that are normal. This photo on the left is something that we have on the walls in New Berlin West, and it was painted by our AP Art students, and I think it fits this year because some students are the smartest, but some students aren't, and there might be somebody smarter than you. There might be somebody with cooler clothes than you. They pick on my tie all the time. They don't think it's cool necessarily. Some do. Small group. Some students are better at sports than you. but there's other things that might be a little bit more important, and especially right now, but think even as you look into the future, it doesn't matter because you have your thing too. Be the kid who can get along. Be the kid who is generous. Be the kid who is happy for others. And be the kid who does the right thing. Be the nice kid. And it's not that that's everything either. It's everybody can find their place in our community. Everybody can find their place to be successful in their own way. And I think that's what's really important, and that's what we strive for. That's the community that we're striving for at New Berlin West. And again, I won't say it's perfect, but we continue to move in that direction and continue to work toward that as we move forward. So with that, that does close our presentation. We're happy to answer any questions you might have. I got a couple more pictures in here if you want to see lunch, hallways, just what it looks like in schools.
So I know last year one of the big things was the new cafe. Has that been able to operate this year, or how is it different?
So the new cafe is operating. We actually have, last year we had two different lunch serving areas where we had the cafeteria and then we had the new cafe. This year we're actually using our concession stand down in the field house area as well. The challenge so far has been that we haven't had students be able to work in the cafe. So it's been a lunch serving area, but it's been used via food service. So it is something that my advisor to that area said, can we discuss this for second semester? So that may come on table as things improve.
Yeah, that's unfortunately just given the circumstances with COVID, we've had to be very particular about how we're serving the food. But we are, Ms. Bohanson is championing to bring it back to see if we can't get our students trained up to where they need to be so that they can be responsible. And so we're going to try to make it happen, but there's no assurance at this time, just given the limitations that we have.
Is that class still happening and they just don't get to serve?
Correct,
Okay.
yes. I mean, they still have like the HR side of things, the hiring, the stocking, the production, but it's just not the hands-on that we would want.
And they're actually still connecting with outside agencies. They're looking at different food types. They're still doing the recommendations to food service. They just can't put it into place physically. Right. So all of the other pieces are in place for sure.
Quick question. I've been curious about the class blocking and feedback from you on how you dislike the blocking.
The blocking?
Yeah.
So interesting, before we had 6 classes per day, just to kind of give the picture to everybody. Now we're at 4 classes per day. And it's been fairly positive feedback. I won't say 100% positive feedback from staff and students. Some people like being able to focus on less classes in a given day. I think for some virtual students, that time has been sometimes felt a little bit long if you're virtual. If you're in person and you're working virtual, sometimes it feels a little bit long because we're not as activity-based maybe as we normally would. From teachers and from students, you can get deeper into a conversation. You can get deeper into a discussion with 4 classes per day. So right now, they're about 85 minutes. I'm looking just for sure, about 85 minutes per class hour. Before they were 60. So for this year, definitely the less transitions has been beneficial. I do think that, challenge is we don't have that flex time, and that's probably our biggest challenge within the schedule. So I would advocate, and I think every teacher and almost every student around would advocate to get that flex time back when we can. And it's not because we don't want to, it's just right now.
And it hasn't been all for naught. So like, for example, as Michael mentioned, we have that extra roughly 25 minutes per class. So students would have the opportunity to work with that teacher directly, so you're not getting that direct instruction fully. You would have individual time. Now, it doesn't look exactly like it did before, but I do think that is something that, Kelly and the team, including Michael and others, I've tasked them with, because of the opportunity that we had to try this, what may we take with us moving forward? Because there certainly are some positives that come with it. But then, how do we factor in the flex and, advisory that we've had in the past? And that's, that also goes with, for example, at the elementary school, for example, the opportunity that we had for, we did 2 weeks of hybrid, but maybe we do that permanently for a week moving forward at the elementary. because we had the chance to try it, there were some very positive outcomes as a result of it. And is that something that we want to kind of carry with us moving forward? So those are just a few of the examples of several. Obviously we're not going to necessarily be requiring masks moving forward if we don't need to, but there are some things, that, we would look to consider, like lunch areas, spreading kids out. Is that a possible option for us moving forward for various reasons? So again, we're certainly learning a lot, and the team will certainly be on it as we move forward to make firm determinations for next school year.
I think two things. In our general guideline, teachers are not providing new material in the last 15 minutes of a class hour to allow some interaction and some support time. So that's one of the general guidelines. The other one related to lunch is we probably had more students eat outside. Not probably. We did have more students eat outside than ever before. And that turned out to be a real big positive for us. We did some food trucks and things at homecoming that were just kind of a connected piece to that turned out to be a real positive with our student body, but in the community as well.
Again, I'm certainly very proud of the team. Obviously you've got the administrative team here from West, but they represent many. Emily, the student body, and our staff there have certainly, Michael, when I'm not sure if I was telling you or asking you, to be quite honest with you, Michael.
I still don't know the answer.
But I think it worked out quite well. We certainly, for all the things that Michael had mentioned previously, we're in a much different place, and I think the consistency of the team has been one of the reasons why we've had the success that we've had. And when I say success, the fact that West is now significantly exceeding expectations as a school, which was an accomplishment that hadn't been made until as of late. So I think it's a testament to the work of not only everybody here, the students and staff and so on. So very proud of the work that's happening there. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Up next is a COVID-19 update.
Yeah, so I'll kind of get right into it. And similar to what I've provided previously, we wanted to kind of share with you the data related to case and quarantine trends. Obviously, the peak of our COVID experience occurred in November, and even though things were expected to significantly increase over December, that did not happen. And that was something that was kind of a surprise to the county, and certainly to us as well. We were certainly prepared to have it not go in the direction that we wanted it to. Similarly, if you look at like our peak staff cases, it was back in November 13, and staff quarantines November 17. So again, as mentioned, we had the student cases. November was just a really difficult time for us, but we were able to navigate and make it through. As always, this is something that we post on the website, and then we will also send a correspondence follow-up to families tomorrow based on the information that's provided here. But certainly people can find as much information as they want on our website related to anything and everything COVID, not only from the school district perspective, but also from the county perspective as well. The biggest highlight that I wanted to point out today, of several, was really the vaccination updates, because there have been a lot of questions. In fact, today, as I understand it, the State Department of Health Services had a press conference. Unfortunately, I was not able to catch it, but there are a lot of questions related to the vaccines. Unfortunately, Wisconsin, for whatever reason, has kind of been a bit behind in the rollout. There have been some communication issues. I just read an article recently that as far as Midwest states go, we're certainly delayed compared to some of the other states for, again, things are very complicated when it comes to these rollouts, so I can certainly understand that. As you may or may not know, there are two different vaccines out there right now, both the Pfizer and the Moderna, and then there will also be a third one that is forthcoming, which may become a game changer, because if you may or may not know, both the Pfizer and Moderna are a 2-dose vaccine, where the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is a single-dose vaccine. With that, we're getting a lot of feedback because there has been chatter at the state level. So right now, 1A of the rollout is happening. So that would be medical providers that work directly with COVID patients and or those in residential or facilities, medical facilities, as well as first responders. So they're part of that 1A group. The 1B group is the next group, and tentatively, K-12 educators may actually end up slipping from what was going to be the 2A group into this 1B group for various reasons. There are several factors that come into play for that. That has not been determined yet by the state. The state has to make that determination, but certainly we are vying for that opportunity. Certainly part of that first wave, and actually I believe Pam Jesse, our school nurse, as well as some of our health room assistants and possibly one of our secretaries over at Orchard Lane, as she is kind of in the front lines, may be able to get the vaccine, if they want it, part of that 1A wave as well. And then the rest of the K-12 staff hopefully will be part of that 1B group, but again, as of right now, we're still in that 2A group. There is no definitive date set. From my last conversation with the county health department, there just has not been a lot of communication from the state, and so we're really just kind of a sit and wait. But certainly, as soon as we know, we're doing everything we can to be prepared internally to make sure that we are prepared should we have access to vaccines as a staff. One of the things that we want to clarify for the board, and there has been some question about this too from our own staff, are whether or not we would be requiring the vaccines, and we would not be doing so. There are many reasons why we don't feel that that would be appropriate. Certainly we don't require many other things other than things that we have to by law. So for example, the infamous TB test that we all have to take when we get hired. You do like a background check, but as far as vaccinations go, that is something that I think is a leap too far forward for us to require. Particularly, we actually can't require these vaccines right now because these have not been officially approved by the FDA. They have been emergency approved, or per se, and so even with these initial vaccines that we have, by law, we can't actually require the vaccine with these currently approved vaccines that are out there. Certainly, we will continue to work with the county as they get information. We'll be happy to pass out that information. And like I said, we're sharing this information with you. We'll be sharing this information with our staff as early as tomorrow or Wednesday as well. We also wanted to talk not only about vaccines, but we also wanted to provide a general update of the state of affairs as the school district. At the week of January 22nd, we will be letting families know. So as you are aware, we had asked families to make a determination prior to winter break of whether they were looking to intend to make a shift one way or the other, whether it's to return back to face from virtual or the other way around. For whatever reason, families had given their various circumstances. Again, we will be offering both options for the remainder of the school year. In fact, this is another thing that we are looking into for future years is, will we consider a virtual option for our students moving forward, regardless of whether we have a pandemic or not. And so that is something that Dr. Sanders and I are working on with the rest of our team to determine the feasibility of that. As you are aware, we decided to postpone any sort of virtual charter school only because we weren't sure what the pandemic would have as far as an impact on enrollment. And so rather we're going to focus on our own internal students first for next year to see will that be feasible, and then consider opening that up beyond our borders to other students throughout the state of Wisconsin as a virtual charter option in future years. Please know that there will be some students that will be impacted as a result of this. There are going to be a couple of 6th grade sections that will be impacted because we do have class sizes that are teetering near 30, and because of the the opportunity for us to have to social distance, particularly in some of our smaller classrooms, we felt the need to ask the board for additional resources in 6th grade at a couple of our schools, and also in 5th grade, we are bringing back a teacher from virtual learning back to face just because of where we are at and having students back in school, and again, for all the reasons that we just mentioned. Again, we will be notifying families the week of the 22nd. Further, it would allow us to, depending on if we have a specific teacher that are students that really would prefer to stick with that teacher and come back and follow that teacher from virtual to face, it allows us that opportunity and room for that impact should parents choose to follow the teacher of where they're going. So again, we'll be certainly notifying families of that. We are asking the board to approve 1 FTE or a half of FTE tonight, and we'll be bringing an additional FTE for your additional half FTE at the next school board meeting to solidify this plan. Generally speaking, we do know, and we've gotten feedback from the county health department as well as anecdotal feedback from our local healthcare providers that certainly the pandemic has been difficult on our families and our students. And so we want to reiterate the fact that, and again, I did send one of these, some of these resources out earlier in the school year. We will be sending this out again as per our message tomorrow. That certainly counselors, school psychs, and district social workers are available for a variety of different supports. We also have on our website posted our resource guide for students that are struggling. One of the questions that Janet had asked me kind of offline was, what type of impact are we seeing? And again, we'll bring more of this detail for you the first meeting in February, but we're not seeing more cases of social emotional issues. It's just a different kind of issues. So we're seeing a lot more anxiety related to the pandemic. We're seeing a lot more anxiety because students that are at home or, not having the social opportunities that they normally would are having that added stress. And so how are we navigating through that? So again, it's not more, it's just different. And so again, we are prepared to address those needs. And again, we'll iterate this again to our families in our correspondence that we'll be sending out tomorrow. Again, we just want to remind people, we cannot become complacent. I will say that I'm extremely proud of the work that we've done, but part of it is because we've stayed very vigilant in our efforts. And so it's easy to get fatigue, this COVID fatigue. I think we're all kind of over this thing. But we also can't forget what got us here to be able to stay open this school year. Is, we still need to, wear the mask. We still need to socially distance. We still need to, do what we can to, avoid, these interactions as needed, or these significantly large group gatherings. So we need to just stay vigilant. Keep your kids home if they're sick. And again, sometimes that, you get used to the cold and flu season. Well, this isn't just a typical cold and flu season. We're in the midst of a pandemic. And so again, we'll remind families to keep their kids home if they're having any of these issues. So those are my updates, and I certainly would welcome any questions.
Are there any questions?
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Then we're going to move on to discuss, approve the Eisenhower Tuck Pointing Project Phase 2. Since this is an action item, can I have a motion to open up discussion?
Move to approve and discuss the Eisenhower Tuck Pointing Project Phase 2.
Second.
All in favor?
Do we want to have conversation first?
Oh, sorry, that's right.
I appreciate the vote. I'll just keep it very short.
I thought we were all voting on whether or not we're going to discuss. Get used to this.
But again, the committee, the facilities committee had met, and actually this was already on their docket. We just wanted to solidify approval. We did, the board did approve the first phase of the tuck pointing. I guess I'd defer to Mitch or whoever's on the facilities committee. This was the second part. And again, based on Andy's recommendation, there were some things that he wanted to solidify with Patrick, and then Patrick wanted to kind of pass this along, but mainly for timing purposes, we wanted to just bring this to the board. It's just the second phase. It's within our budget. So, within that $250,000 that we had, allocated for, these capital projects. So again, we would recommend approval, and it sounds like we've already got a lot of support. So if you have additional comments, questions, Mitch, please share with Mitch as needed, or.
This is the first phase, right? This is just the approval of it.
Phase 2, it says.
Is it phase 2? Okay.
Yeah, I think we approved the first phase along with the doors for Elmwood, which we came in under the 250 at closer to like 195, I think, Patrick. But this is an estimate for 170,000. So where are we getting that extra money? Did the other projects come in under budget, or we have surplus somewhere else?
We're doing part of this with the dollars that were allocated and part of it with the dollars that are within the budget. The first phase of the tuck pointing, a lot of the work was done internally, and so we saved a considerable amount not having to sub that work out.
And this was the only tuck pointing on the long-range plan, right, for Eisenhower then? Is this put us to where we need to be current? Or is there other stuff in the future? That
Yes, it puts us where we need to be with New Berlin Eisenhower. The biggest thing about this tuck pointing is you can tell with the removal and abatement, these were things that couldn't be done internally.
Any other discussion? Okay, so then all those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, raise your right hand. Motion passes. Then we'll move on to discuss approve policy 7230, gifts, grants, and bequests. Can I have a motion to open up discussion?
I'd move that we approve policy 7230 to replace our former policy numbered
3280.
3280, I think. Is it 3280?
3280, yep.
3280 in our current policies. This policy has been developed by the Finance Committee with heavy assistance from our CFO, Pat Miller, and I move we approve it.
Have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
So we had this for our first read at our last meeting, and at that time, we talked about how we had taken our existing policy 3280, had overlaid the Neola policy 7230 onto that, our existing policy, and we kind of took the best elements from both and melded them together with Pat Miller's help. And so I would recommend that we accept this new policy 7230 regarding gifts, grants, and bequests.
Is there any other discussion? Okay, then we'll move on to the vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, raise your right hand. The motion passes. Then we have the first read of policy 5114, open enrollment.
Yeah, so as the board is aware, last year, and I'll actually just kind of read this so that it's got some good flow here. We have attached revision policy 5114. Open enrollment, as you all are aware, allows currently attending students, either those currently attending via tuition waiver or any other current resident students moving out of the district, be guaranteed continued enrollment via open enrollment regardless of grade level or special education status. Siblings of currently attending students would continue to have priority for seats or the waiting list. There are currently 22 known tuition waivered students, 4 with IEPs, and in all grade levels but K and 11 for 21-22. Of the 30 seats that were available for this year, only 21 seats were accepted. Although this policy revision will grant open enrollment seats at any grade level and for special education students, it seems to make sense to us that if we will be offering open enrollment seats, that they be to students in whom we already have an educational investment, those already in our schools and to whom staff are already accustomed to. This revision also removes the reapplication requirement as it becomes moot due to the guarantee for currently attending students. This revision was developed and supported by our legal counsel based on the feedback that we provided them. As school boards must revisit their policy annually, you may withdraw the guarantee and reinstate the reapplication requirement in future years. So again, at this time, we would just be asking you to just focus on next school year, and then after that, we can certainly circle back and reconsider. Due to the present and unknown future circumstances surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic, we recommend that you revert back to the 12% buffer used in years prior to determine seat availability. A seat projections draft for regular ed is attached to aid in your decision. These numbers do not include students whose parents have opted for homeschooling or open enrollment out of district, primarily to a virtual school, this year due to COVID-19. The increased buffer will allow for the possible return of those students and allow for continued social distancing should we need it. These projections will be presented along with special education sheet projections to you during your next meeting for approval prior to the February 1 statutory deadline and opening of the open enrollment application window. Essentially, because of the uncertainty that COVID-19 has provided us related to our enrollment, again, as you are aware, we experienced a significant drop in enrollment this year. We do believe it had a lot to do with COVID. There was a lot of people moving out, people moving in, but we certainly wasn't something that we expected, as well as not a lot of other school districts in the area expected it as well. Given that, and just given that uncertainty, it is very difficult, typically on any year, to predict where we may or may not have available seats, and this will provide an even more difficult given the circumstances that we have with COVID-19. Again, we would just essentially ask for a pause, hit the pause button for next school year, and then we can continue to move forward in the direction that the board was moving in, that they entered into the current school year. Again, we just want to make sure that we are not entering into any undue necessary costs because of the fact that we are choosing to have open enrollment seats when, again, we certainly just cannot predict what the future bears. Certainly we have supported it. We think we entered in, we're learning a lot. Unfortunately, COVID has not allowed us to do the type of research and analysis that we would typically have wanted, just because of the fact that enrollment is just all over the place right now. So essentially, we're just asking kind of hit pause for next year and then reinstate back to where the board was going in future years.
How does the policy change go along with the suggestion to pause open enrollment? Because if we don't have any seats, then what does the policy change do?
It essentially allows the kids that are already here or that are already in the tuition waiver process to be guaranteed a spot. So that would be the change that.
So we don't have to have an open enrollment seat for them. They can enroll regardless.
Correct.
Okay.
And because it's policy, then then we know exactly what our marching orders are.
Okay, so instead of saying like we're giving priority to these students for our seats, we're just saying if you're already enrolled and you leave the district but you want to stay here, you can have your seat. Okay, that helps, because I read that and I was like, this isn't jiving my brain. What are they saying?
Yeah, and again, we were basically taking some of the anecdotal feedback that we received from the board last year on making this determination. So we're not necessarily just wiping it completely away. We're prioritizing the kids that are already here.
So does this officially close open enrollment seats for next year for those 9 additional seats we had?
Those seats had already, once Third Friday came and
We filled, so we had 30 seats available, we filled 21.
Pardon me?
We had 30 seats available, we filled 21.
Correct.
We had 9 additional.
Those seats are null and void now. So now we start the process all over again.
So we only have 29 open enrollment students from this year. We wouldn't have any for next year then, right?
Well, at this point, we know of those 22 kids that are tuition waivered. There may be additional kids that move out. If you guarantee if you revise your policy to guarantee continued or currently attending students, any student moving now out of the district would
fill
also
those
receive that guarantee.
Okay, gotcha.
So I have a couple concerns. The first one being, what if those kids that left with COVID to go homeschool or go to private school or whatever don't come back? And now we aren't allowing ourselves to fill those seats with other open enrollment students. I feel like while I get the desire to keep some seats available for them, I'm worried that if they don't come back, which seems fairly likely, then we will still end up with low enrollment for next year. I'll stop there for now and think a little bit more.
Again, for us, it's, trying to predict that, like, we didn't predict the 130 some odd students that we lost, and there did a lot of other school districts.
Wouldn't that be a pretty small, I don't know that we'd really lose students that were open enrolled to a private school and then coming back, right? That number in itself would probably be one or less. I wouldn't think that number would be very high.
We'd have to, do you know the specific number roughly, Anna?
If we were closed this year, I could see that number being much greater because they were looking for an alternative that we didn't offer. But being open this whole year, I don't know that I wouldn't think that would be.
I don't have it in here, but I know it was, I'm going to say there might have been like 12 kids that went to homeschool and 20 some that opted to or open enrolled out. But those were kids that strictly have done so either since the start of the school year or over the summer, but have had previous New Berlin enrollments. So they're like brand new to open enrollment and brand new to homeschooling. And it was strictly due to COVID.
But they live in New Berlin, though.
Yes.
Yeah, so that wouldn't impact open enrollment in for them, right?
Correct, not in, but if they do return, do you want to hold those spots for them on the possibility they might return, seeing as this is the first year that they've homeschooled or open enrolled out?
Well, anyone that lives in the city, we have to have a seat for them for education, right? This doesn't exclude anyone of them.
That's correct.
I think the concern.
They wouldn't be open enrolled, sorry, Kate. They wouldn't be open enrolled, Mitch.
That's okay.
Yeah,
that's
a resident student.
But if let's say we left the formula the same and we ended up with 100 open enrollment seats, and then 50 of those kids that left this year come back, now we've got 150 kids coming in. What are the numbers? If we didn't change the percentage, I think we had it at 9% last year, is that correct? Like, what would be the number of seats if we didn't change the formula from last year?
I think I ran the numbers for elementary with all of our data points from last cycle. And my calculation, and Diana, you can check this for me, but my calculation yielded at the elementary level alone 39 seats. So if we use the same metric that we used last year when COVID was coming into the new school year, I feel like it's the same. I don't want to increase what we're doing for open enrollment, but I feel like if we keep the program at the same level we had in the previous cycle, that would be a conservative and prudent choice, because I think that we still need to fill some seats.
Didn't you just say it would be 39, so that would increase, right?
That's what
Go from 30 to 39.
Sure, and I think that Mitch, if you wanted to, here's the thing. We created 30 seats and we only got 21, so I don't feel like that's going to be a huge game changer. As far as if we say we've got 39 seats, you could also, that was also using our last year 9% figure. If you maybe wanted to boost that to 10% or something, so you held back 10% space instead of the 9% that we held back last year, then that would get you lower than the 39. I think either one would probably be fine. But I think that to basically eliminate the open enrollment program, which is what this 12% cushion would do, is probably not the right direction. I've looked at this issue kind of broadly in terms of population, and when you look around other districts around us, New Berlin skews old. So we have a lot fewer kids in schools than, say, Ellenbrook does, while the population of Ellenbrook overall is basically comparable to New Berlin. They have enrollment of something on the order of almost 8,000 kids, and we've got 4,000, but the population is the same. So we don't have as many school-aged kids. And so we have infrastructure that supports having more kids in our buildings than what we currently have. So it seems like a modest enrollment through open enrollment could be a positive thing for us. We heard before in questions I think that you had asked, Mitch, of Pat Miller as to what the effects are, what the effects were on our district of open enrollment, whether we had expended any funds. And Patrick told you that, or told all of us rather, that we had not experienced any deficit or any issue with costs related to open enrollment. And so I think that dipping our toe in the pool of open enrollment has yielded a good result. I just would hate to see us back off on it when we made a good start. And if we keep it at the 9%, or even, like I said, at 10%, we could keep it somewhat intact so that we can review it again every year like we have to and make adjustments as we need to. But I feel like it's been a positive thus far, and I'd kind of like to keep that moderate and small size program going.
I would like to add that it's very difficult to analyze the financial impact on a year that is as unique as it is this year. So, while I understand, Patrick may have shared the impact has been zero or minimal, well, it could be zero or minimal because of the fact that we lost 130 some odd kids. And so therefore everything is, fine and dandy. But again, I would respectfully disagree that the conservative approach here would be, and again, it's not like we are shutting down the open enrollment process, because we actually, in fact, are keeping everything intact and allowing students to continue on as they would. But again, not knowing what the future holds, again, in our opinion, is the more conservative approach is to hit pause for the year. And then again, typically, again, if we were in a non-pandemic year, certainly we would have brought similar numbers to you that we would have, but the numbers just are not, we cannot analyze or determine whether it was a good decision or not, and the true fiscal implications that it's had on our district because of the pandemic.
The two concerns I have, and I think you and Kate brought them up when we were talking about opening full-time or doing hybrid, you guys both were a little concerned on classroom numbers, not shrinking those, and the argument for going to the hybrid option. So this, if we keep our teacher staff the same, we're going to be adding 19 plus kids into classrooms. So we're going to be increasing those classroom sizes. So I think that goes in direct conflict of what you and Kate have argued about with opening full-time.
Yeah, but I think when we look ahead to next school year, and given the vaccine and where things will, in theory, be by September, it's a totally different analysis than the beginning of this school year, because there isn't hopefully going to be a raging pandemic. It's going to be the trailing end. The majority of people, well, not children, will be vaccinated by that point. I know there was a lot of concern last year around what would it look like if our district tweaked the formula, and now suddenly we have seats, and now we're saying we're going to just tweak it right back and go back to what we had. Like, don't we have concerns about how that is going to look? And while, Joe, you're saying we just want to pause it, we don't want to take it away, we could have a very different board next year that's voting, and going backwards, I feel like, sets the precedent, and there's no guarantee of what we will do or not do next year. So I feel like we should keep the formula the same, especially because we don't know if any of those 130 kids are going to come back.
The other concern I have too is we are adding 19 more vehicles to our already very, very crowded pickup lines. And I know this year we have less kids being bused. A lot more people are driving their parents. And would you agree with that, Joe, that pickup lines are longer this year than they have been in past?
That's correct.
So,
and again, with COVID hopefully over, parents will go back to sending their kids on the bus. I feel like those are smaller circumstantial things versus, is open enrollment something that our district wants to do because we have a great product and we think we should offer it to other students in the area, or because we want to keep our enrollment numbers up so we can get more money from the state? I feel like we were headed in that direction last year, And now suddenly we're saying, nope, that's not what we want to do. We should reverse course and back up.
I think everyone was in agreement that voted on, that we didn't want this to grow to be 200 students. I think the whole thing was to bring in 20, 30 students and have a pilot. I think it's gone well. I mean, I voted in support of it, but I never wanted this to grow to be 300, 400 students. I mean, the goal of this is not growth. The goal is, let's pick up some additional funds, let's manage it, and let's monitor it as we go. I don't think anyone said that let's just grow this every single year.
No, I didn't say grow it every year. I just, do we want to do open enrollment? So we got 21 kids this year with the loss of 130. I'm sure that extra money helped somewhat. So if we increase it from 30 seats to 39 seats based on the same formula, that's relatively the same. There's no guarantee we'll actually get 39 students enrolled. We didn't end up with the full 30 this year because of the way that the applications came in. So I would say keep the program the same for next year. Don't grow it, especially given the concerns that the district raised, but I personally do not want to reverse course and go backwards.
It is growing. We're going from 30 to 39.
We can't, the formula is the formula. I mean, we could tweak the formula, but we can't make it 30 again unless we change the formula. So I'm saying we just keep the formula
if we kept the same formula and the next year, then it became 50 students. I mean, the argument can't be, let's just keep the formula the same. If it just keeps growing and growing, it's growing.
Well, we lost 130 students. That's very significant as far as money coming in. So there are more seats for next year if we use the same formula because we have less kids this year than we did last year.
Yeah, but the concern is, again, the question around the students that left. It was unprecedented number of kids that made that switch. And that's a big question mark. I mean, that's the whole thing with open enrollment is the question mark. And it's the first year is the easiest year. You can predict that to some extent, although throw a pandemic in. But, you know, again, I think everyone knows how I feel about open enrollment. I haven't changed on that. I just would err on the side of caution because you can't stop it. And once you start bringing kids in, you can't take them out of the system, right? They've joined the district. They become part of our district. So I would just use caution.
And I think with this year being a pandemic and everything going on, I think this is a pretty good year to justify changing our formula. I don't know there's another better year to justify that. If there's ever a year to change it, I think this is definitely a good year.
But I think in the fall, it's not the same because with the rollout of the vaccine as it's been described by the health department, by Joe in his update tonight, we're going to be talking about a critical mass of people having the vaccine, especially teachers, which is going to go a long way toward safety in our classrooms and sustainability for our populations in the buildings. So I don't think that, Mitch, it's exactly the same. And I think that if you compare it, quite frankly, when you're looking at the numbers that we looked at last year in January, keeping it the same is quite tenable because we didn't even know at that time that the pandemic was coming, and it still worked out all right for us.
I mean, I want to just clarify that we don't know whether it worked out for us or not, because, for example, if we would have not had the pandemic, we would not have had the virtual school option, and so therefore, we wouldn't really know if we needed an extra teacher or not, depending on the kids that actually were showing up to school, say in like kindergarten, first or second grade. So that's the part of the analysis that we've not been able to do because we don't know what to compare it to because it's such a unique year. So I can't, that's the difficult part for us is I can't say whether what we did was a success or not, or did it cost us more money or not because of the uniqueness of the circumstances that we're experiencing right now.
And I'll be honest, when we're looking at this, you mentioned the virtual charter school again. I would rather focus our energy on having a charter school. I mean, with Milwaukee and other large cities being closed, I think we got a lot better opportunity to bring students into a virtual charter option than bringing them in a brick and mortar school this year, or next year, sorry.
That's an interesting point. I mean, is anything, because I know there was talk about making some exceptions to open enrollment, extending it because some districts were closing, right? They weren't doing on-site. Is there any talk about having a virtual open enrollment? I mean, is the state looking at that at all?
Yeah, and so, one of the things that we, as of right now, in order for us to offer a virtual seat, we have to have a virtual charter school. So I can't, as of right now, so that was one of the big things that we looked into right away, is we have to have a charter in order to do that. So I can't, for example, with Diana coming up with her formula, the way that the regulations from the state are right now is I can't designate, like, these are my virtual seats, because Mitch, back to your point, then in that case I'd say, give us 1,000 seats virtual, but per the numbers that we have and the parameters that we have to work with, I can't designate those out any differently unless we have a separate charter school.
How much work is it for you to write that up for a separate charter school to be able to do that?
It's some work. It's some work.
I mean, is that feasible to do by?
We would, and again, because of where we don't even know what the impact is going to have on our own student population next year, and so we want to start there first. Again, to be quite honest with you, if we never would have had the pandemic, we wouldn't have had such. I believe in most cases, while it's not perfect, and neither is our brick and mortar situation, we would have never had this opportunity. So now what does that mean for us long term, just for our own student population? And then from there, what would it mean, and where, what are the magic numbers that Patrick would have in order, how many kids do I have to have, Patrick, to pay for a teacher? Is it 17 kids in a specific grade level that if I have, say, 10 kids internally, then I would have 7 seats from kids from the outside to be able to come in? That's yet to be determined. And so again, our goal for next year is, what will we do with, so I know some of you board members have a student that is doing the virtual option. Is that something you'd consider in the future? And is that, I don't know, we don't know that. And that is something we'll be doing probably as we wrap up this school year, is kind of get that feedback from families. But again, this is just another reason why I don't know what the numbers are going to be come next fall, because I don't even know what options we're going to offer our own kids. So again, there are just many variables. And again, please know that, certainly we'll support whatever the board wants. We're just giving our administrative recommendation that, let's hit pause until we have a better idea of what's, and again, we're not stopping anything. We're just pausing. And again, we're allowing kids that, again, are already in to be in. We're allowing kids the tuition waiver to stay. There's no reapplication at the secondary level, so we're trying to make it as easy and flexible as possible with the kids that we already have. So again, it's not like we're just shutting everything down, because that's not what we're doing. And again, allow us to truly analyze the impact that it has with so many more variables that we have coming for next fall.
Before we move on, I want to actually take a look at some of the language on the proposed changes for the policy, because I actually took the policy and I ran it by my contact at the DPI, who works in the open enrollment division, and she pointed out a contradiction between a couple of sections. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, Joe, and maybe we could tackle that before we vote on it at the next meeting. So in the bottom of page 1, section 2 sub C, the third line from the bottom indicates siblings of pupils already attending district schools shall be given preference in the random selection process. So the word shall there requires us to give preference, right, to the siblings. And then you turn to page 2, section 3 sub A, about 5 lines down. The new language indicates that the district will count resident students, tuition waiver students under statute section 121.84, and may include in its counted occupied spaces students and siblings of students who have applied. So that's a contradiction between the former language. So I think legal counsel is going to have to resolve that. So if you could mention that to them before we gather again next time. And I think that the issue is, what does the board want to do about that? Do we want to always give preference to siblings in the selection process, which is what the initial language would indicate, but the subsequent language indicates that we have discretion and that we have to make a decision about every year? Diana, yeah.
Actually, statutorily, you have to give preference. You have to give at least preference
to the
currently attending students and siblings of currently attending students.
So then the language in the second paragraph has to change.
Okay.
To be shall.
Yep, we'll bring that to Chrissy's attention.
Yeah, that'd be great, because otherwise it doesn't jive. So, and the rest of the changes, I mean, I was really curious about the deletion of all the language surrounding racial imbalance, and I didn't know what that was about. And then I found out from the DPI that that was statutory language that had already sunsetted. And so our legal counsel is just bringing it up to current standard so that we don't have outdated language in our policy that we're relying on. So that's totally appropriate. And so were most of the other changes that I went over with her. So the rest of it, I think, from my perspective, was fine.
Any other discussion before we move on?
We don't have to approve that, do we?
No, not today. That's the first reading.
Yep.
So next time, it'll be up for vote. In the meantime.
Do need direction though, however, on kind of where you're leaning. Do we want to kind of go towards this guarantee? That affects how I determine numbers. Okay.
The guarantee of the siblings, you're saying?
Oh, no, of currently attending students, okay.
So would the issue be changing the cushion, the 12%? Is that what? Yeah.
Yeah. Are you asking for guidance of if you need other information?
Guidance.
I think it sounds, well, I didn't hear from Jeff much, but are you?
Okay with the pause.
The pause? Okay. I think that's.
It's just not changing, it's just a pause because we don't.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Nobody knows what's happening. And, you know, everything's in upheaval. We can't guarantee numbers for anything. So I don't want to, you know, the 130, we don't know what they're going to do. They were reactionary to what they needed for their kids, and we don't know if they're going to come back. So I don't want to guarantee that that number is correct either. So because we don't know, everything's so new. You're right. The numbers, you know, it's a balance act, and I don't want to commit to. I mean, pausing it leaves it exactly the way that it is. It's fine. The kid's got the place to be, and pausing it just to kind of get our feet underneath us to see where we're at makes sense.
Okay, so we will move on to action items discussed in closed session. So we have a couple of items to vote on.
I'll start off with one. Move to approve the employment services report as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, raise your right hand. Motion passes. And then for the second item, the FFCRA policy.
I move to approve the revised policy of the FFCRA. As presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, raise your right hand. Motion passes. Then we have future meetings and dates. Board meetings are generally held the second and fourth Mondays, beginning at 7 o'clock p.m. In the New Berlin West Commons, unless noted otherwise. So actually, I think going forward, it's going to be an Ike. So instead, that should actually, I change that to Eisenhower. The next one is actually not our next meeting. The Personnel Committee meeting is January 18th at 4 o'clock p.m. That is open to the public, but it will be virtual. January 25th is our next regular meeting at 7 o'clock p.m. Same day, Finance Committee meeting prior to that at 5:30. Then we have a board meeting February 8th at 7 o'clock, a board meeting February 22nd at 7 o'clock. Prior to that, there'll be a 5:30 Finance Committee meeting. Other important dates to remember: January 18th, there is no school, Staff Professional Learning Day. January 18th and 29th, there's no school. Additional Staff Professional Learning Days and another Staff Professional Learning Day, February 15th. There's no school that day as well.
Can you comment, are the board meetings planned to be here then, the 18th, 8th, and 22nd? I mean, we don't have to make a decision now, but.
No, there's a chance they'll be virtual, and it's going to be based on how heavy the agenda is. So if sometimes we've had very brief agendas, and it's not really worth all coming here for, a short meeting. So those will probably be virtual, but if we have a heavy schedule like we do tonight, I would plan those in person. Personnel's virtual. Mm-hmm. We don't need to return to closed session, so then I ask for a second.
Yep.
All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, raise your right hand. Motion passed.